The Star Wars Expanded Universe Timeline is proud to present the never-before-published third book in Scholastic's Adventures in Hyperspace series, The Big Switch, by Ryder Wyndham. Included are preliminary illustrations by Jeff Carlisle, footnotes, and an afterword by Ryder Wyndham, explaining the history of this project, and a synopsis for what would have been Book 4, The Last Blade Master. No copyright infringement is intended or implied. This is an unpublished work preserved here for fans and archival purposes. Should Lucasfilm and Scholastic ever decide to publish it in the future, it will be taken down.
Hello, younglings, and welcome back to the Padawan Library, the galaxy's only Star Wars junior novel podcast. I am Junior Jedi Librarian Levi, and with me, my fellow Junior Jedi Librarian, Tim May.
Hello, everybody!
And today we are finishing up our series on the Adventures in Hyperspace with Book 3, The Big Switch, which was unreleased, but thanks to the author, Ryder Wyndham, and a website known as the Star Wars Expanded Universe Timeline, we have access to that book. And because there's a big switch, which it doesn't seem like there's a big switch in this book, but there is a big switch.
Yeah, I'm trying to even think of what the big switch would be.
All right.
We'll talk about it. We'll talk about it,
yeah. We all decided we'll watch a heist movie, like when we tried to... so we decided to watch The Hot Rock, which we tried to watch with Adventures in Wild Space, The Steal, but it didn't work out. We ended up watching The Italian Job, but now we are back because it's on Criterion Channel. It's easy to get to. Quality is great on there.
Looks great.
And so... Yep, so that's what we're doing this week.
All right, so let's talk a little bit about this movie. I was the one who suggested it the first time around, and we wound up not being able to watch it because outside, if you guys want to watch it, you got to get the Criterion Channel because it's essentially unavailable otherwise. It's on Blu-ray, but the Blu-ray goes for like $45 minimum. We're talking like, and even the DVD, which I own, and got at a Best Buy like clearance rack like a couple years ago for $4, now goes for like $30 or something. So, but if you get the Criterion Channel, a very worthwhile service. You can see it. They have a big George Segal selection because George Segal just died, R.I.P., and he's one of the stars of the film. So this is a movie directed by Peter Yates, who did Bullet and Breaking Away, the only two other movies of his I've seen. I like Bullet. We've talked about it a few times on the show. I haven't seen it since I was younger, and I want to revisit it. Maybe I would agree with, and certainly the only thing that I remember about it is the car chase, but I saw it when I was like 14, but you saw it recently and thought only the car chase is good, rest of the movie you thought was not that good, right? Wasn't that the take?
Well, Peter Yates agrees with me, according to the Wikipedia. Yates calls the film better than...
He thinks The Hot Rock is better.
He said it's better than Bullet.
He might have... You know what I'm guessing? I didn't check the note on that. I'm guessing he said that promoting The Hot Rock. That's my guess, that he said it. Okay, and then the other movie I have seen is Breaking Away, which is a great movie, like a movie about high school cyclists. That's a really good movie. I haven't seen the only other movie of his that I think is like really like well known and like fairly popular is The Friends of Eddie Coyle with Robert Mitchum. One of Robert Mitchum's last big roles, probably. Well, not last, you know what I mean. It's kind of him entering the next phase of his career, I should say.
I checked the note. I think he was promoting the movie. It was from the Chicago Tribune, April 16th, 1972.
Well, that's when around when the movie came out. So yes.
Yep.
Which I'm not saying he didn't believe that, but come on. Anyway, so this is a heist movie. It's written, by the way, by William Goldman, the legendary screenwriter who wrote Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid and The Princess Bride and, All the President's Men, like a legend, Frank, like one of the greats.
A great Robert Redford movie, by the way.
Oh, you mean All the President's Men? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And Robert Redford is the star of this film. Also George Segal, and Zero Mostel in a very memorable role. But the movie, Robert Redford plays a professional thief who's just getting out of prison at the beginning of the movie. Very classic setup for a heist movie.
Mm-hmm. Kind of reminded me of the Italian Job at the beginning there a little bit.
Very similar idea, and he gets picked up by his brother-in-law, who's played by George Segal, and they go back to Redford's sister's apartment, and they start planning. Segal starts telling him about, man, this guy from the UN wants us to steal a diamond from a museum. Belongs back with their country, and it's like, okay, so it's like a kind of like a victimless crime, like you can get invested, like let's just get this diamond back, and then at least that's how it's set up, and then Redford doesn't want to do it because he obviously wants to move on with his life, no longer be a professional criminal, but that's kind of not dealt with like in any serious way. It's kind of just like, you know what, he says that, and then it's like, whatever, I'll do it, and he's like just starts talking about how he'd plan it, and you jump right into it, and you're like, man, they're getting to the heist immediately here, you know.
I know. Mel said that. Like,
you're like, wow,
we're
right
already
away.
in
And
it?
but then they get caught at the last minute, and the diamond gets misplaced somewhere, and the rest of the movie is them Right.
Yeah, they throw it to the one guy, and he swallows it, but he gets arrested.
Oh, yeah, and he gets arrested, and then so then it becomes breaking like him out of prison.
Yeah, it becomes a series of heists, like more heists. So they have to break him out of prison. Then they find out that he left the rock at the police station. So then they got to break into the police station. Then they find out he told his father. His father somehow went into the police station and got it. And then his father stored it in a safety deposit box that requires him to personally be there. So the final heist is basically robbing a bank. So, and the whole time Robert Redford's, he's dealing with a sour stomach. He doesn't have an ulcer yet, but he is going to get one, because he can't relax. He can't be happy.
Near the end of the movie, there's this great helicopter sequence where George Segal, who apparently has no experience flying a helicopter, is flying a helicopter through New York City. And Redford has it looks so uncomfortable the whole time. Very funny. It's just a series of of big heist, breakout set pieces, and it's nothing it's nothing groundbreaking, but it's a good entertainment. I think I love Redford. I'm a big Redford guy. One of my favorite movie stars. My favorite current living movie star is probably Brad Pitt, who's obviously kind of the successor to Redford in many ways. Mm-hmm. I think he's actually a bit of a better actor than Robert Redford, but that's not. I don't think that's controversial. But yeah,
my thing with Redford is so much of his acting is done by his hair. He has such unique hair, especially in the 70s. So I think a big part of it is done by that. So
he looks incredible. I mean, he's just the most beautiful man, arguably, to ever live. He's still just so beautiful. Pete's Dragon, I'm just like, look at him. I can't believe. And he doesn't look like an old guy that's gotten a lot of work done. He just is aged so gracefully. And you're like, look at this guy. He's 85 years old. He looks incredible. He's beautiful, a beautiful man. And so this era, and Redford, I mentioned William Goldman, and obviously, Redford and him had a collaboration that went on for a while, because there's Butch Cassidy, this movie, and All the President's Men. I know they had some sort of falling out over All the President's Men because Redford tries to kind of claim some credit on that screenplay, which I kind of never really believed, frankly. I think that's kind of a bit of a, whatever. I love Redford. I don't want to talk shit. But there's like Siegel, though, is also an interesting movie star because he died recently, and I think, like, it was reported, like, character actor George Siegel dies, but, like, if you look at him in the 70s, he was not a character actor. He was a very big star. Like, you know what I mean? Like, he was the lead in a lot of movies. Like, again, this is that period in the 70s when, like, relatively ordinary-looking men, of course, only men, like, could be, like, huge movie stars, and it's like, because, I mean, that starts with Dustin Hoffman, obviously, with The Graduate, that he kind of breaks open the door for, like, these, like,
average Joes.
Or ethnic, quote-unquote, i.e. Jewish or Italian, people like, to be, like, movie stars, and, it's interesting, because I'm reading this book about Al Pacino right now, this Anatomy of an Actor book from Kaihei du Cinema. Very good. And it's got me rewatching all these Pacino movies, and, I was rewatching The Godfather Part 2 yesterday. Good Lord. Just unreal how good that is. But the most obvious statement in the world, but Jesus fucking Christ. But anyway, I was looking at him, though, and, like, he's thought of as this kind of, like, distinctive, quirky-looking guy. But if you look at Pacino in the 70s, insanely handsome. Just in a very up to that point, Hollywood way. But a very handsome guy, and I think that's true of a lot of these guys. But Siegel, a guy like George Siegel, or a guy like Donald Sutherland, like, you know what I mean? Like, these kinds of, like, very, like, distinctive-looking presences on screen. Does it, you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about, because, like, Donald Sutherland especially, he's a real, like, goofy-looking guy.
Yeah, but, because of their movie star presence, they still have this magnetism, but I don't know if that's, maybe that wouldn't translate in real life, maybe that's just, like, a movie thing, but...
Yep. I realized watching this, like, George Siegel, the first movie I know I ever saw him in, Look Who's Talking. Do you remember him in Look Who's Talking?
No, I mean, he was in a lot of like kids movies in the 90s, right? Wasn't he?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like wasn't he on a sitcom in the 90s?
He was on Just Shoot Me.
Yeah.
So that was his big
That's
sitcom,
probably what I knew him from, frankly. Obviously in the 70s, but he was in a lot of, he was the lead in a lot of movies, but not necessarily, he wasn't like in a lot of like the big movies that you think of from the 70s. So, like, I think he's thought of as this character actor just because people look at him and they don't remember that he was a huge star. But it's like, because, like, no, even though, like, Elliot Gould is, like, the same kind of guy, like, he looks similar, but, like, people wouldn't call him a character actor because they remember, oh, he's the star of MASH, and he's the star of, whatever. So, like, I don't know. It's just an interesting observation.
All right, hang on. I'm looking at his filmography, and wow. All right, so in 2007, he was in a short film directed by Ethan Cohen, E-T-A-N,
oh, yeah,
not Ethan Cohen.
You know who that is? That's just like a hack comedy.
No,
guy.
I don't.
Yeah, he's...
Oh, okay, because...
No, there's Ethan Cohen and Joel Cohen, like with an H, Cohen.
Yeah.
Like, that are both
right,
kind of like just studio comedy rewrite guys.
Yeah, he wrote Tropic Thunder, Madagascar 2, and Men in Black 3. He apparently made a short called My Wife is Retarded, so that...
Great. What? The 2000s.
Class act, that Cohen.
The 2000s. It was so long ago.
I know, right? It's too long ago.
Yeah, what a wild time. But anyway, who's the actor who plays the guy that gets arrested? I'm blanking on...
okay, let me get back to the page here, because
that's the son of Zero Mostel.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And who's great in this movie,
Zero Mostel is incredible, but I love that guy that plays the son. Like, what a distinctive looking guy. I can't, like, place him. You know what I'm saying?
What was his name? Was his name? There's Greensburg.
It's Greenberg. It's the second. It's Greenberg. The son is Greenberg.
Paul Sand.
Paul
I think
Sand.
His name's Paul Sand.
Yeah, you're right.
Actor
You're right.
and comedian.
I looked it up, and I'm unfamiliar with him really, but like, what a like vibe he gives off. I enjoy it. You know, like again, I just like these '70s like skeezy like guys. Like that's my favorite kind of person.
He's so weak too because like part of the reason he gets caught is because they have to lift that glass case and he can't hold it. Like he drops it. And then when they break him out of prison, they have like the rope that he has to climb and he's like, "Why didn't you bring a ladder? I can't climb a rope."
And then at the end there's a reversal where you find out that his dad, Zero Mostel, is like trying to get the diamond for himself and all this stuff. And they realize it, and they're together, and the son looks at him, he's just like, "How could you, Dad? I'll never speak with you again." And it is the funniest thing ever.
At one point he does say, "Wait till Mom hears about this," which is very funny.
There's a very good line where Redford is waiting out somewhere, and this like homeless guy like comes up to him and
mugs him and
is just like, "I really would like that watch," and he's just like, "Keep going to church and praying every day and maybe the Lord will look down upon you," or whatever. I was just like, that is incredible.
So
I just want to like, that is the that's a great William Goldman line. So yeah, I you know, this is minor work from everybody involved, but just, you know, again, one of those kinds of movies where just like, you know, this is just like, it hits the right notes, and you're in and out, and you're like, that was a satisfying experience today. But, yeah.
I agree. Yeah, that was something that apparently, this is what the Wikipedia article says. This is what Yates is saying about, he said, he agreed to make the film because all around me I was finding people were making nothing about but films about violence, sex, and drugs. Everything was a downer, and I wanted an upper. The point of the film is not that the characters are criminals, but they are likable, and that they, like many people, plan things all their lives and never work out. So, but
no, I see where he's got. I mean, obviously, 72. This is kind of the heart of, you know, New Hollywood at its peak, you know, which, you know, again, I'm reading that Pacino book, so I'm like all in right now. I watched Scarecrow for the first time with Pacino and Hackman.
Okay.
That movie is incredible. Like, this is a completely forgotten movie. It's a beautiful thing. Like, both of them just great in it. And Pacino, like, we haven't had I don't think we've reviewed a Pacino movie on the show. But,
no, I don't think we have.
And either. I know, like, and I don't really see an opening in the near future, so I just feel, and since I'm reading this book, I just want to give some Pacino thoughts. Like, and we're, you know, we're not going to have much to say about the book, so I feel like we got time. So, that guy there is no one more inherently compelling that's ever been on screen. Like, I want to look at him at all times. I'm just like, what is going on there? And like, I think that extends even to like his later career. But if you're talking about Pacino in the 70s, he's just unfuckwithable. We're talking about like Panic in Needle Park, Godfather 2, Scarecrow, Serpico, Dog Day. Like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, that is insane. And I mean, Serpico is just, that is what I want any. That's a film performance like for the absolute ages, and it's like the third or fourth best one of the decade for him. That's insane.
It is insane.
like he only did that between Godfather movies. You're like, what the fuck is happening? Like, how can you do that?
He has this insane prowess that, like, no matter what, you can't take your eyes off of him. And that even holds true in Dick Tracy, because in Dick Tracy, he's in this heavy makeup, and he is just chewing through scenery the entire time.
I'm a huge fan of 90s Pacino, and I think 90s Pacino gets a bad rap, you know, because I think I mean, Dick Tracy is insane, obviously, but that movie is just, like, one of the craziest things that's ever been made by Hollywood, so setting that, and I love it, but set it aside.
Mm-hmm.
But, like, you look at his Michael Mann movies, I mean, Heat and The Insider, these are, like, all-time performances. Like, and I find him immensely watchable. And then even into the 2000s, when he's largely stopped, like, picking good movies, you still get, like, Angels in America that he's insanely good in. And then now, like, even recently, you got The Irishman, which I think he's fantastic in. And that one scene he has in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood is so fucking funny, where he's talking about his screening room or whatever. I laugh every time. It's one of the funniest things I've ever seen. But, like, I just find, like, and I can't wait to see him in House of the Gooch. I'm so excited.
Well, I need him. The fact that there's a chance that we could get him and Driver together, which is crazy, but him and Gaga together is even crazier.
Oh,
so.
You can't, yeah, like two Italian kings. Like I just like and yeah, Carlito's Way. I forgot to mention in the '90s. Carlito's Way is such an underrated movie. Like Oh, okay. Anyway, I don't know why we're talking about Pacino. I just brought him up. I apologize, but like, and he's not in this movie. I'm sorry, but like, I'm just like, I'm pretty like obsessed right now. And again, listen, we all know The Godfather is good, but I think a lot of people that haven't seen The Godfather all know it's good, and you should watch it. It's good. It's really fun to watch, by the way, and it's like an incredible work of art. Like, it's a beautiful thing. Just watch it. That's all. Okay? And like, fucking, he is unreal in those movies. I mean, him in 2. That's just like one of the, that's the peak. That's the peak. I feel like such a basic bitch film bro saying this, but like, that's the peak of all movies. Like, that performance is insane. I'm also obsessed with Coppola right now, so like, I watched the Cotton Club Encore finally, the recut of the Cotton Club. Holy shit! That movie's great. I'm just, like, you know what? I love movies. Movies are good.
I love movies.
Yeah, exactly.
I love making movies. I love watching movies.
Oh, so true.
And speaking of movies, we're watching another movie next week that has nothing to do with the title of our next book.
By the way, this movie had nothing to do with this book. but
it's a heist, kinda. I don't know.
It was a makeup. It was a makeup award for last time, so it's fine.
So next week, a book that has nothing to do. We just want to watch this movie. We are going to watch and discuss The Amusement Park, the lost George Romero film that is exclusively available on Shudder.
Coming out today, right?
Coming out today. I hear it's nuts. I saw a good headline, like a good review headline. They said it was like the scariest movie imaginable. So, and if you don't know anything about The Amusement Park, basically, hang on.
It was a film that was commissioned
by the Lutheran Society.
By the Lutheran Society in Pittsburgh in 1973?
As an educational film about elder abuse and ageism. So Romero makes this movie, they see it, and they refuse to release it. And that is where the movie stops.
And I have to say this because and we'll talk about this all next week, but there is no filmmaker I have more love and affection for on every possible level than George Romero. He is like my guy.
Well, that's our PA elitism kicking in a little bit.
That's absolutely part of it, but there's a lot of reasons. I love George Romero, and I think he's like the most like. We'll get into it next week, but I had never heard of this. No one had ever heard of this project. This was not known as like a lost movie until about 2 years ago, and his widow found the movie when she was going through his stuff after he died, and like that's how it was discovered. And there obviously there were enough people that were alive at the time that could verify what happened and all that stuff, but like it was not a like known lost film. There's a lot of stuff like, and we wanted to do it for this week because the book we're reading was not officially released, but it's not out until after we record. So
Yeah, I think like today. It's not out till like today. So, and we also wanted to do it too because we went to an amusement park the past weekend in Pennsylvania.
Sure. Not the one that this movie was shot at, unfortunately. But...
No, that one's gone. Another PA staple of probably Romero's home area. In that area of Pennsylvania. Mm-hmm. But we had a good time there. No Star Wars content there to talk about, unfortunately. But we'll leave it at that. So we're talking about the amusement park next week, along with, what's the book we're reading? I don't have it in front of me to tell you what the title actually is.
Isn't it called Aliens, Tales from a Galaxy Far, Far Away?
Something like that, part 1. Yeah, it was
volume 1.
It was a Force Awakens tie-in that is canon, and it's a series of short stories about the various critters and creatures that are seen in Force Awakens, including one portion obsessed character. So
very exciting. We'll talk about that next week. But yeah, I want to just give some final quick thoughts on the Hot Rock and on 70s cinema.
Okay, all right.
I'm just saying, like, this was what, like, dumb commercial movies were in the 70s. I don't even want to say dumb. I don't think the movie's dumb, but, like, this was, like, just a commercial bet. This movie's this movie's not aspiring to any sort of artistic greatness, but it's like, this is, like, the equivalent of, like, I don't even know right now. What is the equivalent of this movie coming out right now? Like,
oh boy, that's a good question.
There's nothing like it.
Fast 9, Fast.
And you know, I'm a big fan of those movies, but like, come on, those are like giant $100 million blockbusters. Like this, like again, there's just like little moments. It's not a great like a deep character story, but there's just like these little grace moments, like the one I was talking about with Redford and the homeless guy, or like the moments with Redford and his sister, like. Just like these nice little like human moments that you just do not see in movies. Like it's just frustrating, but whatever.
Well, this movie was actually for the time, it had a $5 million budget, so that was pretty big at the time.
Well, I bet that a lot of that was. I bet a lot of that's Redford.
Redford
was at his absolute apex at that point.
And that big helicopter scene, like, you know, that cost money there. That helicopter scene had to cost quite a bit, so that was probably a part of it too. So,
$5 million is still like a mid-budget movie at this point.
The thing we haven't talked about, the hypnosis scene.
That is insane. I forgot about that.
And when Redford says, when he finally says, because you know what's coming, when he finally says, what is it?
Afghanistan banana stand.
Banana. When he says it, the unease on his face, because he's like, I have no clue if this is going to work or not, and the way he just slides it into the conversation, incredible scene.
Well, I'm glad we've had this insanely discursive nonsense conversation about the Hot Rock. But when we come back, we're going to be talking about the third unpublished book in the Adventures in Hyperspace series. So stay tuned, everybody. Welcome back to Padawan Library. I'm Tim May, here as always with Levi Peretic.
Hello.
And this week, we are finishing up Adventures in Hyperspace. This went quick. Like a snap of the fingers. Adventures in Hyperspace by Ryder Wyndham. This third book was unpublished. So we mentioned at the beginning of the episode that you can find this book, and I believe it's Star Wars Timeline.net. All right, yeah, you can find it there, and they have a bunch of other like kind of unpreserved Star Wars story content, including like old Hyperspace articles and like comic strips that were on the website. Like it's actually like, if you're interested in this kind of thing, like there's even an adult novel that was supposed to be published in like 1993. That's like there's a manuscript of there. So there is material.
The website has this amazing, like, classic HTML vibe to it. Like, you know,
it has a great look. I'm glad they haven't updated the design It looks awesome. You know, this was what fan sites used to be, man. The golden age of fan sites, when that was what fandom online was, when it wasn't communicating with other fans, it was just like fans posting crap, like check out these pictures. I took screen caps from the movie, and you're like, oh, haven't seen one look this good before. Thank you.
Incredible. Oh, you're a .net? I'm intrigued.
Yeah. So I have, but this book obviously was going to be published in 2010, I believe in September 2010. And there's a note at the end of the book about from Ryder Wyndham where he explains the process, that they approved 4 outlines for a 4-book deal, and then they canceled it halfway through, and they even changed illustrators halfway through. That's why the illustrations in this, there are like rough illustrations to go with this manuscript, but they're by a different artist. What's that artist's name?
Jeff's name is, the artist's name is Jeff Carlisle.
Right.
And these are all very preliminary. They all seem very much just he
just
does
like
get a very
thumbnails,
good likeness
basically.
of Harrison Ford. Yeah, he does get a very good likeness of Harrison Ford, which our last artist struggled with a little bit. But our last artist too made more of like scenes, like he had illustrations of scenes going on, whereas like this guy, he just has portraits of people or little things. Like, and granted, these are all preliminary.
And might have been way more, just given how many illustrations were in the first two. Like, I think if the book had gone to the kind of final stages. But the most interesting thing about this book is that it's unpublished and that it was released this way, which is kind of cool. There's also his synopsis for the 4th book at the end here. He didn't wind up writing that manuscript.
We should just talk about that now because...
it doesn't really connect to this 3rd book.
Doesn't really connect. None of these books really ever connect. So let me get to the bottom of this. Wow, as I'm scrolling through this hyperspace background, I feel like I'm in Lightspeed.
Yeah.
Okay, this is the synopsis for Adventures in Hyperspace 4, The Last Blade Master, which this title is
hard.
Great. Han and Chewie are transporting an antique business droid, CZ-4, a gift from Bunda the Hutt to Jabba. When their hyperdrive malfunctions, they are forced to land the Falcon on a world inhabited by the Numb, humanoid aliens with primitive technology. The Numb are unable to provide the parts needed for the Falcon's repair. Rotten luck. The Numb become nervous, though, at the sight of CZ-4. Apparently they are fearful of droids. While Han and Chewie consider their next move, CZ-4 goes missing. This is bad news for the droid. This is bad news. The droid is Bunda's gift to Jabba. If they ever hope to do business with the Hutts again, they'll have to recover the droid. At first, Han and Chewie suspect the Numb are responsible for taking the droid, but they soon discover that the moon has another population, a group of war droids that have been terrorizing the Numb ever since their ship crashed centuries ago. The war droids once fought on behalf of Krath, the long-forgotten secret society that once menaced the galaxy. It is the war droids who have abducted CZ-4. The war droids' leader, known as the Blade Master, in parentheses, his arms house retractable metal swords. He wants to cannibalize CZ-4 for parts. Chewbacca winds up competing against the Blade Master, while Han rescues CZ-4 from disassembly. Chewie defeats the Blade Master, and Han not only rescues CZ-4, but manages to deactivate all the other droids. So it's a happy ending, basically. And Bunda the Hutt, this is a note from the author. Bunda Hutt appeared in the Droids comics and other stories. The CZ droids and Krath war droids are drawn from the EU and were included in the Essential Guide to Droids. The Numb and their moon are my own invention. So
nice.
That's the setup for book 4.
I mean, that sounds, perfectly fine, much like these books. And we'll get into the content here in a minute. I imagine there's more stuff like this. And I'm sure that the people who run this website would love to be given more stuff like this. So, if you're out there, Jude Watson or John Whitman or any of these people we've talked about over the years, like, I'm sure there's at least some, early drafts. I would love to get my hands on some stuff. That's all I'm saying.
We need that conclusion to the science adventure books,
That's true.
Little Timmy never found his way home.
It wasn't Timmy.
It
was
his name, but...
I just mentioned him last week.
Yeah, you did.
It's gone from me. So let's talk about the book, though, because this book, there's not a lot to talk about. I enjoyed it, though. I think, just as a heads up, I think this is probably the strongest of the three, for me anyway. I thought this had a lot of kind of fun reversals and,
This had some silly moments in it, some very silly moments
in
this one.
Basically, Han and Chewie are on their way back to Tatooine to deliver bottled water to a Jabba-owned restaurant.
Yes,
in Mos Eisley.
The restaurant is known as. Hang on, I have it written down here. Oh, the Court of the Fountain.
Court of the Fountain.
Name of the restaurant.
Sounds fancy.
Which our author here, he gives us all these notes at the end of the book, and apparently that Court of the Fountain showed up in the Star Wars Guide to Complete Locations on page 132.
That's cool. I didn't know that. That's interesting. Not as invention. But basically, they get pulled over by the cops, aka Imperial guys, inspection people. What's the auditors? They're not auditors. They're
Captain Wrench is his name.
Captain Wrench without a W, just Rench. And
don't forget the black hole. At the beginning of this book, they're rimming a black hole to try to save time getting to Tatooine. It apparently only saves them 30 seconds. It's this whole interstellar thing they're trying to pull here, but it comes into play later, so that's why I bring it up.
Yeah, and they get pulled over basically, and this guy's like, "What's this bottled water? What's this cargo you're carrying?" They're like, "It's just bottled water for this restaurant." And he's like, "That restaurant's owned by the Hutts. I'm gonna take this water." And it's just like, God damn it, this guy. And they get there. So he's like, if I catch you one more time with the Hutts, like, you're off to a slave planet. And so they get to Mos Eisley and they get to the restaurant. Bib Fortuna, apparently the manager of this restaurant, taking the delivery. And they're like, "We got the water for you. It's in our tanks. Just get some barrels." And he's like, "We need bottled water. Our patrons want bottled water." And Han's just like, well, this, he mentions offhand this Wrench character. He's just like, well, take it up with him because he took the bottled water. And it's like, okay. And he's like, or you could just tell Jabba that you don't have any water to serve. And like Bib's just like, "Oh shit, you're right. Oh, like, get the barrels.
He's constantly like trampling over Bib Fortuna, but he's also like making fun of him all the time. He keeps calling him like brain tails, referring to the fact that Twi'leks have their brains in their head tails.
Right.
I think that might be a slightly derogatory thing to be saying to Bib Fortuna. Han doesn't really care what he says in these books. Han treats everybody like shit in these books, so
I mean, Bib is a bad guy, so I let it slide a little more. Not that I'm excusing racist language.
Hey,
I just
should talk in the latest episode of The Bad Batch.
Haven't seen it.
All right. The Bad Batch has to rescue a child by the name of Mochi. All right, Mochi's been kidnapped.
Okay.
Mochi turns out to be the Rancor. All right, so they named the Rancor,
okay.
And it's the Rancor's young.
I'm so glad we know the Rancor's name. If we didn't know the Rancor's name, like, I would never have been able to get over that scene in Jedi. Never would have had that power for me. I'm so glad. Whatever.
Well, anyway, Wrecker ends up fighting the Rancor until he subdues it because they have a social hierarchy, and then the Rancor becomes friendly. They deliver the Rancor. Bib Fortuna is there, and Bib Fortuna, he goes and he embraces the Rancor. He's so happy. It's the happiest you ever see Bib Fortuna, and the Rancor is like happy. And nowhere in my mind do I believe that Jabba and the Rancor treated the Rancor so nicely that the Rancor was nice to them. Like,
I feel like the only person in the palace that liked the Rancor was the trainer.
Right.
They should have delivered him to the keeper.
Who also has a name.
What's his name? I'm blanking on his name.
It's blanking on me,
but
too.
He definitely does have a name. But, like, if they delivered to him, then that could be a moment. But Bib Fortuna, get out of here.
Yeah, Bib Fortuna runs over,
an opportunist.
He grabs Smokey. I don't buy it.
Bib Fortuna is like a fucking fixer, man. Like, he's a bad guy.
Yeah.
Like, we don't need to make him sympathetic. Get out of here.
Yeah, Mandalorian made him a sleazeball, at that end there. He's got a slave on a chain,
He's an absolutely bad guy. It's he's like Jabba's number one dude and has been for decades. So I'm not, whatever.
And so Han delivers the water, and then Han.
We're back to the book, everybody.
He decides he's going to go to the Court of the Fountains and have himself a plate of food because he wants to talk to Jabba personally. And Jabba, he's like, Han, me Buki.
No, he says my boy, but I wish he said my Buki.
I know, I do too. And he's like, oh, I love how you treat Bib Fortuna like shit. Like, I get such a kick out of it. Now, I have another job, and I need you to go pick up a sculpture of my relative, the Great Boga. A sculpture of him has been unearthed that's 4,000 years old. I need you to go to Unajin, pick it up. Job pays 6,000 credits now, 6,000's on delivery. So
Han's just like, I'm doing this.
Of course. All right.
So,
first though, I need a full star plate for the Falcon. The full star plate for the Falcon's gone bad.
Okay, so that's what's happened. And then, so they go to a shop, and what's this girl's name? Or this woman's name?
Her name is Cromer.
Cromer. All right, Cromer with a K. And this character is actually named after a real life Star Wars fan who built a Millennium Falcon bed, I guess.
Yes, I'm gonna. I found the photos of this bed.
Oh, good. Post.
Yeah, I'll post it on the social media.
Apparently, this bed went viral circa 2010, and Ryder was like, I need to pay tribute to Cromer.
He got her permission to use her name and her likeness, even though none of the illustrations show up of her in this book. But we'll talk about this character later because something crazy happens with this character later. In my opinion.
But so she says, "Okay, I got exactly what you need. Here's the thing. Also, do you want some Wookiee Ookies? Explain what Wookiee Ookies are."
They are cookies that Wookiees like, apparently, because she's making them for Chalamun, who is apparently another Wookiee on Tatooine. That's why she's making them. And Han's like, well, Chewie would love those. He loves Wookiee Ookies. So, she makes them a little bag.
For Wookiees, basically. And anyway, so Han gets the plate and leaves, and as he leaves, we see that what's the Imperial guy's name again?
Oh, Wrench. He
Wrench
pops
is there
out of Cromer's back room, yeah.
And he's like, "Oh, thank you, Cromer." So he's clearly there's going to be a tracker or something in that thing. So they're fucked. So they're on their way to this planet to retrieve this statue.
Mm-hmm.
And Wrench follows them and pulls them over right before they get there. Pulls them over. He's a cop. So, and then he basically is and the person that's there, what's the guy's name?
Bipsmick. And Bipsmick they're pissed because they see the ship, which is a customs corvette, they keep calling this, and Bipsmick recognizes that it's a customs corvette immediately. It's like, you brought a customs agent here? Like, that's even though, Anyway. But yeah, Wrench shows up, and he's like, I know something's going up here. Stormtroopers, you search that thing. So they open it up. There's the statue of Jabba's relative, and Wrench is like, ugh, this is disgusting, and he orders his stormtroopers to fire on it immediately, destroying it, and then Wrench is like, well, I'm out of here, guys, carry on, so he leaves, and then Bipsmick is all like, well, good thing I made that replica of it, I was so moved by this sculpture that I had found, I made a replica of it. So Han looks at it, and he's like, all right, this is the big switch here. That's
the big switch.
This is the big switch, yeah. That the fact that Han takes this replica of the sculpture that Bipsmick was going to have for their garden, and it gives it to Jabba. So, but of course, as soon as he gets off the planet, before they get off the planet, Chewie finds the bag of Wookiee Yookies, all right? Because Han forgot to give them to him. And turns out there's a data thing in it. They open it up, and Cromer is there. It's a warning. Hey, in the full star plate, there's a tracker in it. Wrench is after you guys. So they're like, all right.
So she gave them a warning. Like, she was obviously, like, had no choice, probably... was going to be murdered by an Imperial customs agent if she didn't comply.
Cromer's always threatening of sending people to slave camps too. So anyway, Han's like, all right, I got an idea. I'm putting this tracker in the escape pod. They get off planet. Wrench is there. They make the jump to light speed. Wrench follows them. Han takes them to the black hole from the beginning of the book.
Sends the escape pod into the black hole.
And Wrench goes after it, thinking
Wrench
it's the Falcon.
So, like, single-minded. He's like, I'll follow him into a black hole, and he dies. He's done.
Yeah,
he's finished.
He kills everybody on board, too.
So,
like, even the pilots aren't like, that's a bad idea, and, like, he's like, no, I know what's a bad idea, and they all die. Han specifically says, I didn't enjoy watching that, because Chewie thinks he got his kicks out of it, but Han's like,
I like that Han's just like, no, I do not enjoy death. Like, he's like such a...
Yeah.
I take no pleasure in the pain of others.
Now, so he gets back to Tatooine, because Wrench is like, oh, Han, that bottled water you gave us, we know it was toxic, we tested it, so we sent it to Jabba's restaurant. Jabba's gonna be pissed with you, ho, 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 ho. But then they get to Jabba's palace, or the restaurant. Jabba sees the sculpture. He's in awe of this sculpture. He tells Bib that, like, he needs food because he needs food at his time of his most emotional. That's how moved by this sculpture he is. He's at his most emotional. So anyway, then Jabba reveals that he's like, oh, I knew the bottled water was toxic, so I sent it to Coruscant to
Sheev himself.
To Sheev Palpatine as a gift from Captain Wrench. Captain Wrench's days are over. And Han's like, well, I better not tread on his parade and let him know that I killed Wrench already.
But he's like, but it's good to know that Wrench would have been fucked either way. I like that. Mm-hmm. So then the last moment of this book, they go to thank Cromer.
Mm-hmm.
Is that her name again? Cromer?
That's her name. Mm-hmm.
All right. And go to thank Cromer, and
I'm gonna read this. All right.
Okay.
They secured the Falcon. They were halfway to the trading post when they saw Cromer approaching on the street. She cried, "Han, Chewie, I saw the Falcon land, but then I saw Jabba and his men, and I waited until they left." Her lower lip trembled. She threw herself at Han and embraced him. "We're all right, Cromer," Han said. "Thanks to you." Cromer smiled. "If you want to thank me, you could take me out to dinner." "Huh?" Han said. "Why would you want me to take you out? I mean, you know how to cook, right?
Oh my god.
Cromer pushed herself away from Han, glared at him, then turned and stormed off, heading back to the trading post. She did not look back. Lifting his gaze to Chewbacca, Han said, "What? Did I say something wrong?" Chewbacca chuckled. That's how the book ends. Like...
Chewbacca chuckled. What a great... Okay, first of all, listen, I'm not opposed to Han having some retrograde views about women. It's there's, that's fine. But what a weird scene. Like, my feeling about Han, though, and I know that we don't see Han being like a ladies' man in the movies, but I get the impression that he was kind of, that he enjoyed himself before we meet him in New Hope, and also he looks like Harrison Ford in 1977. I'm assuming he was enjoying himself. So I think it's weird. It's weird that she invites him on a date, and he's clueless about it. Doesn't know why.
Remember when that royalty in the first book is she cancels her wedding because she found someone new, and he's oblivious to it?
I don't get why he's oblivious to that one. I get why he would turn that down, because that's somebody that wants a commitment. I feel like this feels like a little more just hey, we're both scumbags on Tatooine. You wanna,
You know that look Poe Dameron gives to Kerry Russell.
Oh my god! That movie would have gone to a 10 out of 10 if they fucked in that moment. That's what I said. I've said that 100. She was like, "No way." I've said it 100 times. I'll say it 100 more.
But there's a point in this book too. I don't remember where it's at. Han says I know the women find me irresistible.
He does say that.
I can't remember when that is. Yeah,
but it's just I get these are obviously books for very little kids. I'm not asking them to have some sort of actual, even casual sexual encounter that's even implied. I'm not even saying that, but it's just what a weird way to end this book, where it's Han just absolutely clueless about this woman being interested in him. And also, saying, don't you know how to cook? What a weird...
Imagine being this girl who this character is completely based on to be just
Well, I would still be flattered. It's I got to hug Han Solo, I guess. I guess. I don't know. We should get her on the show. Come on the show. Anyway. Alright, so this, this book, like all the others, I think I like this one more. I don't know if it's just that, I thought it was... But I honestly think, this is, the most coherent story, and, it's obviously very slight, but it's kind of fun, and, the idea of Jabba wanting a sculpture of his long-lost relative, and I enjoyed the customs agent. He's a good, just kind of fun villain. I don't know. It wasn't incredible, but I was this, for what it's trying to do, this is succeeding for me, by and large. The ending is very weird. Mm-hmm. I'd go I'll go with a 6 out of 10. I think it's a totally solid, book for little kids. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's fine. I'll go 5 out of 10. I don't really have any thoughts this week. I have nothing. We're done.
Oh wow! Okay,
we're done. We're done with the series. It was a slight series, but I'm glad we did it because they were so easy to read. It made
the last 3 weeks have been
so easy.
Pretty easy run for us. I think next week this Aliens short story collection is a beefier book. So
it is.
So yeah,
we'll make up for it.
So yeah, next week we're going to cover Aliens, Tales from a Galaxy Far, Far Away, Volume 1. There was never a Volume 2. That was again published in 2015, around the time of Force Awakens. maybe early 2016. I think it actually was like a little after. But we got that, and we're going to review the new George Romero movie, the lost George Romero film, The Amusement Park, which you can find, by the way, on Shudder. It'll be released today, I believe, as you're listening to this. So check that out. And actually, I'll say, if you haven't seen any other George Romero movies, probably don't start with his lost film from 1972.
No. Well, start with Night of the Living Dead.
Yeah, perfect
It's
movie.
on the It's on Criterion Channel. We know you got that subscription to watch the Hot Rock. Watch Night of the Living Dead while you're there. So start there.
Watch Dawn of the Dead, one of the greatest movies ever. Day of the Dead, all the Dead movies, the first three, and Land of the Dead. I love Land of the Dead also, and then also Night Riders. Everybody, this is my biggest recommend. You know what? We'll talk about all this next week because we're going to talk a lot about Romero. And then we're also going to talk about this Aliens book. I hope it's fun. We'll see. All right, so that's about it.
All right, until the books are due back.
The library is closed. Padawan Library is hosted and produced by Tim May and Levi Peretic. It is edited by Tim May. Our theme song is by The Astral Project. Our artwork is by Freddie Funbuns. Padawan Library is copyright 2021. Tim May and Levi Peretic. All rights reserved.